Before the Roman Empire, before the pyramids, there was Atlantis, a mighty island kingdom. For centuries, Atlanteans thrived. King Moses and Queen Miriam were they characters. Atlanteans were masters of the sea, keepers of secrets lost to time. They ruled the Atlantic Ocean. But then, one single, fateful day, the ocean turned against them. Some say it was God's punishment for their pride. Others, that their knowledge was too dangerous to endure. But before I tell you about that, I have to tell you about the events leading up to the great tragedy. They called it the greatest city the world had ever known. But for people like me, it was just home. That's me, Elias. I was a local fisherman for the slums of Atlantis. I'd always go out to fish first thing in the morning and get a big load of fish for the market. And it was always, I guess, made me nervous because if I didn't catch enough fish or any fish, I wouldn't have any money to feed my daughter. And also it was scary because of the predators in the ocean. If I fell in the water, that was it. If one of them tipped my canoe over, that was it. But there is nothing far scarier than the biggest, mightiest, and scariest ocean predator in the ocean. Other people would always be out on their ships, and it would scare the fish away from me. And I hated that because I needed the fish so I could feed my daughter Lyra. She was all I had, and all I'd ever need. It ain't much, but it's mine, and it's enough, for now. Atlantis shines brightest for those at the top. Down here, we scrape by on the crumbs.
I never see Daddy during the day. I only get to see him at night. I have to walk to school all by myself. It's like I almost don't have parents. How is that fair to me? Every night, I pray Dad will come home to me, and he'll have food to bring to the table. But mostly, that he'll come home. He's all I got.
Caught some good fish today. And hey, there's a big festival happening tonight. We should go.
No thanks, Daddy. That's probably for all the rich people.
Oh no, it's for everybody. All of Atlantis will be out there, and you can see all your friends. It'll be fun.
I don't know.
Oh, come on. This right here is an old Atlantean tradition, dancing around the fire. It symbolizes our pride.
Are you sure they're going to attack us? It could just be another threat.
Oh no, I've got a feeling on this one. We've got to keep our borders secure at all times.
Well, what makes you so certain?
Because they didn't send out a ship to give us a message threatening us like they always do. They've been silent for a long time now, and that makes me believe they're up to something.
So do you suggest we gather up all our ships tonight?
All right. I'll read you the story, but then you go to bed. Deal? Long ago, in the time before the great cities rose, there was a tiny shell that drifted across the endless sea. It had no voice, no song, no home, only the tides to carry it. One day, it washed ashore at the feet of a lonely girl who listened closely and swore that she heard music. She held the shell to her ear, and in its quiet hum, she heard stories. Stories of lost kingdoms. Ancient ruins beneath the sea that no person had ever discovered before. Only the sea creatures knew about it. Also, stories of sea serpents who guarded the deep, and of stars that had fallen into the ocean. The girl carried the shell everywhere, and it gave her courage, because she believed that no matter how far from home you drift, the sea always remembers where you came from. Just a little more, and we'll leave this all behind, Lyra. I promise I won't be a fisherman for too much longer, and we'll live in a much bigger and better place up there. Every night I put her away safe. Never thought one day she'd be all I had left. But all that kept me going was hoping that we could live in a better place. But I don't know if we ever will, especially after what happened later on.
Daddy, Is something bad happening
Go to sleep,
us?
buddy. Come on, go to sleep.
Yeah?
It's the leader of the Atlantean military. What's this?
People of Atlantis, sons and daughters of the sea, look around you. Look at the towers that touch the sky, the streets paved in marble, the banners that dance in the morning wind. All of it, ours, built by our hands, guarded by our blood, and envied by the world. And now, they come, cowards from beyond our borders, bitter and broken by their own failings, who cannot bear to see us shine. They hate our greatness because it reminds them of their weakness. They come not for justice, but to destroy what they could never hope to build. But hear me now, every last one of you. Atlantis does not bow, not to kings, not to armies, not to the sea itself.
I knew I had no choice. I had to go. At some point they were going to raid our home and take me away. The last thing I wanted to do was leave her alone, but the entire Atlantean army, they were taking any man that they could get. I gave Lyra a shell, and I told her, when you miss me, listen close, and you'll hear me. But I couldn't tell her the truth. I didn't know if I would ever see her again. They took me away just like that. It was time to fight their battle.
Let them come. Let them see what pride truly looks like when it stands with a spear in hand and fire in its heart. Today we fight not just for our city, but for what it means to be Atlantean. For every child who dreams of the dome. For every fisherman who casts his net under our flag. For every soul who calls these streets home. We will show them the fury of the waves. And when the sun sets, Atlantis will still stand. Raise your shields, brothers and sisters. Sharpen your spears. Let them choke on their hatred and drown in ours. For Atlantis!
Daddy, why? Why did you have to leave me with this shell? If I put it to my ear, will you really hear me? Are you ever coming back? What if you lose the battle out to sea? Will they come back and destroy us? I'm scared, Daddy. I knew something bad was going to happen. But it shouldn't have to happen to you. You and me have already been through too much. But now, all I have is this shell.
didn't matter who you were. If you could stand, you could die for them. I had never seen so many ships or so many men ready to drown. We carried the pride of Atlantis on our backs and her curse beneath our feet. We sailed into nothing, but nothing was waiting for us. Every man on board waited for the first sign and prayed it wouldn't come. Then we felt it, and the sea was no longer ours. Even before the wave, Atlantis was already breaking.
This is it, men. The enemy is almost here. Load the fire rocks and arrows. Gather your spears. They do not make it to our island.
It looked like the battle had been lost, but then out of nowhere came the scariest, most fierce sea creature alive. The megalodon.
Look, Papa. The light follows us. Even down here.
It's beautiful, Lyra.
Something's watching.
Stay close. Don't let go of my hand.
It's just a dream, Papa.
I don't know anymore. I can't tell what's real.
you, Daddy? Where are you? Can you hear me, Daddy? Where can I find you? I look, but you're not there. It's just emptiness, inside and out. I reach out for you. I see you. But you don't see me. I run after you, but then you disappear. And I'm back here on this beach with all these strangers you left me with.
Citizens of Atlantis, today we stand not in defeat, but in glory. We may have suffered tremendous casualties, and many families have suffered great losses, but our spirit, unbreakable. The enemy thought that they could claim our shores. They thought we would kneel, but they did not know the strength of Atlantean blood. Look around you. What remains is not weakness. It is the fire of our courage, tempered in sacrifice, and made eternal by our fallen. To the brave warriors who laid down their lives, we owe our breath, our homes, our future. You, noble soldiers, those still standing, are the last line that held when all else was crumbling. You are not just protectors, you are legends. And to the people of Atlantis, let this day mark the end of war. Let it mark the rise of a new age. No more will our children live in fear. No more will foreign sails darken our seas. Atlantis is safe, Atlantis is free, and Atlantis will flourish. Now go. Hold your families close. Honor the fallen. And remember this day when Atlantis stood and did not fall.
I became a regular soldier in the Atlantean army. Even though I hadn't really done much, all I did was survive. But I survived the bloodiest battle Atlantis had ever seen. And for that, I was honored. We were living the rich lifestyle that we had craved for so long. We were out of the slums. And we were loving every minute of it. It seemed as if our troubles are over. No more adversity. Just peace. Some time passed, as did my hair and my beard. But then, I met her. I hadn't loved in such a long time, and here was this heavenly blessed beauty approaching me.
You're a soldier in the Atlantean army, aren't you? Were you in that big battle where we miraculously won out the sea?
Yeah, I was in that battle, and it wasn't something that anybody should ever have to experience, ever.
What was that like? You must have been the bravest you have ever been. In fact, you're probably the bravest man I'm talking to right now.
Deep down, I was terrified, and I was only brave because I was forced to be brave. I didn't have a choice on that matter.
Well, you're not only brave, or allegedly brave, you're handsome too. As time passed, like any other couple, we grew closer and closer. Not only is he an amazingly handsome man, but we just have a natural chemistry. We don't even have to try. And that's how you know you've met the one. We didn't waste any time. His daughter's the sweetest little girl I've ever met. And we're a family now.
In the name of the gods who guard Atlantis, and in the eyes of the sun and sea, we gather to bind these two souls in sacred union.
I don't care where the tide takes us, so long as we face it together, my love.
Whatever comes, I'll find you, in this life and in whatever follows. I love you with all my heart.
Then let this bond be sealed by the strength of your hearts and the courage you give one another. As Atlantis stands, so too shall your union.
They say happiness is fleeting, but I remember every second. The way Lyra laughs when Elias lifts her onto his shoulders. The way the sunlight hits his face when he looks at us like we're his whole world. I wake up and wonder how I ever lived without them. Now they're mine forever, till death do us part.
It was just another casual day in the army, just on our watch posts. But then we thought we saw something in the distance, And then before we knew it, it grew closer and closer.
The city is gone. Everything we knew, buried under stone and fire. People are screaming, others are silent. The sky, it's not blue anymore, just smoke. I keep moving, but I don't know where I'm going. Is this the end? My love, where are you? Where are you? You better not leave me. You better not leave me. I love you too much to live in this world without you. Lyra and I need you. I know you'll come back to me. You're too strong. I'll wait for you as long as it takes. I'll wait for you as long as it takes. I knew you'd come back. I knew it. Maybe it's finally over.
You think we'll see the stars tonight?
It almost feels like the war never reached here. It was the most violent earthquake that Atlantis had ever seen. In fact, it was the only one I had ever experienced. It was absolute chaos again. We went down to the beaches, and a big portion of the beaches had been dried up, and a ton of fish had been on the sand. We hadn't seen anything like it in the history of our country. A big group of us felt like it wasn't safe to stay here, at least for now, so we got on a boat. The majority of Atlantis thought that was crazy and stayed. But as it turned out, nobody was right.
Hey, I think there's 2 people floating out on the water. It looks like their own conscience, but they're okay. They're lucky they happen to be floating on a broken sail.
What should we do with them now?
Just let them rest. I saw that there's coconuts up in the tree, so go ahead and get some. I'll keep an eye on these 2. Finally, you're awake. Coconut?
Thanks. Where's my daughter?
Oh, she's right there by another fire I made. Don't worry, she's just sleeping. Were you 2 also on the ship?
Yeah.
Well, you 2 are lucky to be alive, as are we.
There's other survivors?
Oh yeah, when the ship went down, we were not too far from wherever this place is, and so many people swam to shore. Others weren't so lucky. Right now, all we have to eat is coconuts, but we don't know where we are or what is beyond that jungle. You're a soldier, aren't you?
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? We're all lost. We don't have an army coming to save us. I saw that tidal wave hit Atlantis. We got hit by the enemy, an earthquake, and a tidal wave. There is no way they're going to be able to save us. And even if they could, how would they find us?
Maybe we don't need them.
Let me get this straight. You want me to track through a thick jungle that we don't know where it leads to, and hope that on the other side of it there's some type of civilization waiting for us at the other end?
That's the idea. Look, I know it sounds like a suicide mission, but we have to try, and you're the only man who can do it.
You know how crazy that sounds? You expect me to go in there alone? I'm not leaving my daughter behind. Forget it.
Don't worry, I was a doctor in my earlier years. I'll take care of your daughter, and you haven't seen the other survivors, okay? None of them have the strength or the ability or the drive to go on a journey like that.
Oh, and I do.
Yes, and believe me, I would go with you, but we both know I'm too old for that.
Why? Why?
Because you're an officer in the Atlantean army.
So you think that just because I'm a soldier that I can go out on this rescue mission for what we know is going to lead to me getting killed out there by some predator?
You don't know that.
Yeah, what about food and water?
We'll give you a sack of coconuts, and there's plenty of fresh water around this place.
Look, I know I'm in the army, but I can't.
Why not?
The truth is, I didn't do anything when I was in the army. See, when the Atlanteans were going to fight that huge battle out to sea, I wasn't in the army at the time, but I knew that they were going to draft any strong man that they could get, so I left my daughter Lyra behind, which will always be my biggest regret. And I went out to the street, and just like that, they picked me up. I went into that ship thinking I was going to die, and I didn't know what was going to happen to my daughter, and you don't understand. If I had died, I don't know who would have taken care of her, and I didn't do anything in that battle. I stood there. I didn't know how to fire any of the weapons that they were using. I just held onto my spear and hoped for the best. The best. And then eventually, we didn't really win that battle. What I mean is, we didn't beat the enemy. During the battle, the enemy got attacked by a megalodon, and our ship started to sink, and I must have hit my head because I got knocked out. And I dreamed that my daughter and I were underwater looking at a cave. And then all of a sudden, I woke up on another ship taking us home with a bunch of other wounded soldiers. and I hadn't even realized what had happened, but apparently we won. And then, because I was part of the unit that won the battle, they made me a permanent part of the army, and I couldn't say no because we were poor at the time. I was just a fisherman and I could barely provide for my daughter. And then again, in that unexpected attack from the enemy, I didn't do anything. Okay, all I did was just run away because I was scared and I didn't know what to do. And then I got wounded. And then I woke up, but that was it. I didn't do anything when I was a soldier, don't you see?
Yeah, well, despite how you look at it, just surviving is enough. The fact that you were able to pull through all of that, it proves how strong you really are. And to be honest with you, I don't think I could have done what you did, even in my youth. And neither could have anyone else here. So now you've proved to me that you are the best man for the job. You've got to do this. We all need you, and so does your daughter.
And what if I get myself killed? My wife, Violet, she was on that ship too. And I watched her lifeless body sink below the ocean. I am all Lyra has left, so the answer is no.
Everyone, come look at this.
That thing killed my wife, sank our ship, must have been eaten by the megalodon, and it feels good to see it dead. I say we eat its meat.
Elias, it's your daughter. She's worse now. She's very sick and she needs to see a doctor. The longer we're here, the less of a chance she has. And we can't make a raft and go out there. The megalodon will be waiting for us. Our only hope of saving her is you looking for any inhabitants.
I didn't realize this land was that big. I guess that means this must lead to something. Our home. This is what's left of it. Just a lost memory underwater. I wouldn't mind staying here with you. I really wouldn't. I don't know how long I've been out here, maybe a week or so. So that's where this has taken me. More nothingness. Looks promising now. Well, don't need this anymore. All out of coconuts. And that's where I am now. That's my story. I have no idea where I'm going now. And quite frankly, if it weren't for Lyra, I would have given up at this point. Well, this right here's my new friend. His name's Tom. It's nice to have some company. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, some good company is all you need. What are you looking at, Tom? I just don't understand. Whatever ate Tom, why didn't he eat me? I'm more meat, I'm a bigger meal. I just don't get it. I never thought I would feel emotional about a turtle, but he was all I had left. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry, Lyra. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Everybody, look.
I'm proud of you, Elias. I knew you could do it.
We
Believe
did it,
it.
old man. We did it. There were 18 survivors on the island when I arrived, including Lyra and Stuart, so I was 19. That means there were 19 Atlantean survivors after the fall. This big town somewhere in Africa, they welcomed us with open arms. And they even awarded us for being the last of the Atlanteans. Apparently we were allies with them, and they allowed us to live in their community. The only problem is Lyra's still sick and still barely conscious. If only she could see how far we've come. You'll be okay, Lyra. I know it. I know it. I had lived in Atlantis my entire life, so living here, I felt like a fish out of water. But I'm sure in time I'll get used to it. I wonder what Lyra would think of this place. I wonder if she would even believe me when I tell her what I went through. If I had one wish, all it would be was to see her wake up from her illness. That's all.